Hey! Today I wanted to show you how to beat the Midgardsormr, the level 4 Earth Magicite monster in Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Here we're going to select Fabula Raider, which I'll choose over Sentinel's Grimoire since we have Tiro along for the ride. Fabula Raider increases attack and magic a moderate amount, as well as adding haste, so we save on some haste boosts. But we're going to want to slap many Sentinel Grimoires on our party throughout the course of this battle. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. This is not a sub 30. So hang on a second as we skip through this loading screen. So allow me to just go over the abilities we'll be using today in this battle. In no particular order, you can see them going off, but I'll just have a voiceover to explain what's even going on here. So Zack is a very important support character in this instance. For his record materia, he has Soldier's Swiftness is the most important one. He's fully dove with Legend materia. He begins battle with haste, and removes delay from his actions for 3 turns. So we're going to start the battle with Zack to do 2 life siphons, and then follow it up with Fabula Raider. Since he starts with haste, he can get everything in order. But he does also have Life Siphon, which deals physical damage to one target and charges the user's soul break gauge a large amount. If you couple that with Battle Forge, it's even more effective, but I prefer to use Thunder God's Might, which also reduces delay. Zack has a lot of stuff to reduce his delay. He needs to pour on his soul break, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we also have Ripping Blast on Zack, which deals 3 to 5 physical wind attacks to one target. It deals more attacks depending on the number of attacks the users have dealt, which will be important, because once we use all the life siphons, we can switch over to Ripping Blast, deal pretty decent damage, at least for Zack, onto the Midgardsormr. Hit 5 times instead of 3. And he should be fully imperialed with wind, which again we will touch on. As with Cloud, I have him double stacked with Raging Quad Strike, which deals 4 physical wind attacks to one enemy. He's going to be the main damage dealer in this instance. Also, it's very important to get all your healing and whatnot out of the way. Shelga. I have Shelga on Aerith, which gives all targets Shell doubles resistance, which is great to couple with Sentinel's Grimoire. If you're one of those lucky people that has Godwall, which is for Tiro, which does both Sentinel's Grimoire, which raises the attack, or not attack, defense and resistance a large amount, and also does Protect and Shell, you'd have a little more wiggle room here. But we don't, so I have Protectka on Tiro, which doubles defense. But I also gave Tiro Angel Song, which grants major regen to all allies, which I like, because I have some passive healing in case I just can't quite bang out healing with Aerith. But also with Aerith, we have Ultra Cure. I prefer it over Curata, especially in this instance. It restores a very large amount of HP to one ally, and casts Izuna on them, because this monster can sometimes paralyze your party. So it's good to have that in the back. So here we have white materia going off here now. What this does is it deals 5 white magic holy attacks to all targets, which isn't really my main concern. But it restores a large amount of HP to all allies, and grant haste and burst mode to the user. So it's good to have that on Aerith in case she gets slowed. It can also speed her back up. But the main reason I like to do that on top of the great healing is there's 2 abilities, Wonders of the Cetra, which I don't have much use for in this battle, but we do have Pain to Gaia, which heals all party members a small amount of magic. And we also have Aerith Fully Dove, and her Fully Dove Legend materia. I failed to write that down. But what it does is basically Pain to Gaia, but it has a moderate chance of going off. It doesn't always go off, but it'll probably go off, and it'll really save your bacon. You can heal maybe 3,000 per turn, which is great. Now here's Klim Hazard Xeno with Zack, which deals 10 physical wind and non-elemental attacks to random enemies, temporarily lower their wind resistance level by 2, raise the user's attack a moderate amount and defense a small amount, and reduce delay of the user's action for 1 turn, and temporarily cause the user's wind attack to reduce delay of the user's actions for 1 turn. So that's very important for Zack. So what we're going to do here with Cloud is we're going to get Glimmer Rage off, which is a pretty good ability that it carries me through a lot of these wind-based parties. What it does is it deals 15 physical wind attacks to one enemy. Temporarily infuse the user with the power of wind, which in essence means it does wind attacks will do double damage. And enter True Form EX mode. True Form EX mode temporarily raises the user's attack a moderate amount and causes their wind abilities to trigger the follow-up ability Air Hazard, dealing 4 or 8 physical wind and non-elemental attacks that can break the damage cap. We won't really be breaking the damage cap against Midgardsormr, but it can happen, and it's great when it does. But also, not to gloss over Barbaricia, who's basically here just to make up the little bit of difference that we need to damage the Midgardsormr enough to get through. On Barbaricia, we have Tornado, which deals 4 heavy magic wind attacks to one enemy, as well as Meltdown, the Nightmare materia. Or Nightmare ability, rather. It deals 4 devastating magic fire, wind, and earth attacks to one target, but if you do a multi-elemental spell like this, it tends to focus on whatever they're weak to, so you don't have to worry about the earth aspect of it healing Midgardsormr. It just focuses on the fact that there's wind. But she also has Whirlwind, which deals 10 magic wind and non-elemental attacks to one enemy. Temporarily infuse the user with the power of wind, raise the user's magic a moderate amount and resistance a small amount, and cause their wind abilities to trigger the follow-up ability Fair Wind, dealing 5 magic wind and non-elemental attacks to one enemy. So I believe that's the deal with all of the abilities. We'll just kind of let this play out. Oh yes, and most importantly, we have Fenrir, the Wind Magicite, which I don't think with this setup we could even do without him. What it does is it grants Mirror Image to all allies, which enables them to avoid 1 physical attack, and temporarily raise their Earth resistance level by 2, which is very important. But, like, incidentally, when I recorded this, since then, Final Fantasy Record Keeper had 2 free 40 relic draws. Which was crazy when I saw it. It seemed to be celebrating the Kingdom Hearts collab that came out. But I ended up getting Fujin's, I believe, Arcane Overstrike, which does pretty good damage. Which, if I were to do this battle again, I would use Fujin, but this one worked out, so and me have it recorded, and this was my first time, so I figured I'd show it off. Well, as I'm sure you can tell, this is not a sub-30 run, but if you can survive, that's the main thing. You just gotta... I try to keep using Fenrir as late as possible into the fight, because I know it's gonna drag on a while. If I use it the second it becomes available, I might not be able to last the whole way. One other thing to consider is, I also have Finishing Touch with Cloud, which is a good attack. It deals massive wind damage that can break the damage cap. Hypothetically, you can do 99,999 damage with it, which would probably be more than we do with Glimmer Rage in this instance, but you also risk not being able to reapply his wind infusion power. So you want to keep his double damage going, plus his air hazard damage going, so you'll do more damage in the long run here. But it's definitely important to keep Aerith healing. If I could do just quite enough damage, I would like to run a double healer. I've become a pretty big fan of the double healer, because this team right here is basically like my main team, even though it's a wind team. The only difference is I would swap out Barbaricia with Aphmau from Final Fantasy XI, because I have 2 of her soul breaks. One of them is Overdrive, which instantly heals the party and makes it so everyone can do an instant attack, whatever it may be. And also, what's it called? Realignment, which would be great for Barbaricia because it raises magic a moderate amount. I believe it also raises mind for everybody. So she couples with Aerith well for the bonus healing, plus realignment also gives Aphmau an ability to heal everybody, so it's good to keep everyone alive. Also worth mentioning, I have Pulse of Life on Aerith, which in essence heals everyone, like a moderate amount, but it also adds re-raise. I find a lot of the time re-raise is a trap. If you can get Last Stand, that's preferable, because then you don't have to reapply your Shell, your Protect, your Sentinel's Grimoire, any buffs you don't have to worry about. Now, if you were to have Last Stand and re-raise, it might be worth it to have both. But re-raise is only really useful, I find, if you know the enemy has like a last-ditch effort going to kill everyone attack. Or if it does something that breaks the damage cap that you can't really dodge. I don't find it's really that useful a lot of the time. You're better off just having the white materia healing and pile that on. And it's also important to try to stagger Zack's Klim Hazard Xeno in such a way. Like, obviously you want to have it at max. They max out at 6. Well, I presume 6. Maybe it's 5, but it seems to be 6. But try to have it at least 4 to keep the damage going as high as you can. Because if you notice now, at the start of the battle, Barbaritio was doing like 1,000, but now she's doing like 4,000 between the Imperial and the Wind Infusion. I also never bothered to take Cloud's Cloud Cycle off. I don't really use it anymore. So we'll have to be sure here to get Fenrir back on before the worst happens. Oh, and I probably should have mentioned this at the top, but if you're going to do this battle, do yourself a favor and be sure to equip accessories that mitigate earth damage. Before, when I was doing this, I have all the bracelets. You can buy them from the Geishel Exchange that grant major defense to certain elements. Before, I was putting it on Aerith to try to keep her alive, but what was happening in that instance was everyone was dying but her, and then I was just left to try to beat Midgardsormr with white materia when he had... I almost had him beat, even though I was using white materia, but I would love to know how many hit points I had him down to. It was close. But I've since switched it over to Cloud, because if the worst happens and everyone else gets knocked out, Cloud would still be able to do... He's the main damage dealer, so it's kind of important that he stays alive. Like, you really want your healer to be alive, but your main damage dealer really needs to stay alive. You can... It's great if you can stay alive for a while, but Aerith can only survive so long, as can the rest of your folk, so I chose to have him have the major resistance to Earth, which paid off in this instance. But everyone else, I forget the exact accessories I have on everybody, but we have, like, Tetra Elemental is one of them, which also reduces fire damage. But if you're at the point where you're fighting Magicite bosses, you probably have enough elemental relics to protect yourself. I don't really worry about the armors and stuff. I should also mention that I'm a free-to-play player. I've never spent a penny on this game, so everything I have is just kind of... I lucked into. I feel a good piece of advice for this game is it's really easy to want to gravitate towards your favorite characters in this game, but you really just kind of have to go with whoever you get soul breaks for. Now, I'm a big fan of Cloud, so it just kind of worked out that I have all this stuff for him, but I didn't really seek it out. It just kind of fell in my lap. Same with the Zack abilities. Zack and Cloud are like peanut butter and jelly. They're very synergistic with Wind. I would have loved to have Zack's Wind Chain, because if I could do Wind Chain, then the Imperial, both, that would be just lovely. But we can't. And also, if we had Godwall, I would consider making Tiro an Entrust bot to keep the damage piling on. I like to have Entrust bots when I can, but they aren't typically in my rotations. I will use them if I have, like, a person to spare, per se. But I find with these battles, I need either 2 healers or just focus on defense. But that Fabularator that was available, if you haven't made it to level 4 Magicite yet, or 4-star Magicite, I guess I should say. If you haven't made it there, it's not available to you, but it is once you unlock the level 4. Which has been a big help for here. I like using Ramza sometimes with his shout. I have his shout ability, which raises attack by a large amount, but Fabularator's better for moderate attack and magic. Plus the haste, then I don't have to take up a spot with haste. Protect and Angel Song are more important. It's also important to reapply Shell, Protect, Sentinel's Grimoire. I don't know how long they all last. Like, I have something... Like, everyone but Barbaricia here has been fully dove with their Legend Materias. And Tiro has... What is it? He has something that makes it so his status buffs last longer. I find a good rule of thumb, and correct me if I'm wrong if you're more knowledgeable about this than I am. I find a good rule of thumb is stat boosts last about 25 seconds game time. Same with like Thunder God's Might. Lasts about 25 seconds, so it's good to get the battle started, but once you get the Klim Hazard Xenos piling on, his delay gets lowered, Zax does. So let's slap another Whirlwind here. And we do have a number of sub-Magicites as well. I forget which ones do what. I think it's Bottom Swell. I have Spell Ward on. I find that effective to have Spell Ward. I also have one with Resistance Boost, I believe. Maybe a Defense Boost. I would like to have more, like, Wind. Like, Strengthening Wind. Like, I have Fenrir dampens air attacks, which doesn't help here, but the +2 to Earth Resistance is invaluable. But the problem is, my Ice team is pretty bad. I did just get a new weapon for one of my Ice team members, so it might be a little easier to get through that and stack my Wind team up a bit more. But we're gonna get through it just fine. Lo and behold, he's almost beaten, but you can't let that... Don't get too excited, because I've gotten him down this far before, and he just kind of smacked me around a few times at just the wrong time. Like, I'd use Fenrir too early, or I'd wait an extra turn to do, say, like Shelga, Protectka, anything like that. Or he'll just slow the wrong character. Like, if he slows Aerith, that can be bad. Or if he paralyzes Aerith, then you're just screwed. Like, Major Regen is helpful, but it's not, like, the be-all, end-all. Angel Song's more there in lieu of my second healer. I look at it as being, like, 1.5 of a healer. Light Materia. Does some good healing. But if you notice, Cloud doesn't sustain as much damage. Like, not even close. I'm not sure what the elements are for Abysmal Maw and Savage Abysmal Maw, but I find Savage Abysmal Maw does less damage to whomever has, like, the Crag armlet, which lowers damage dealt by Earth abilities. Doing the old Ripper Blast here. But this is the reason why I want to keep Cloud with the Crag armlet. Because if everyone else were to die here, we'd still have a reasonable shot at taking him out. With the Angel Song on, even if Aerith is dead, if he does the Abysmal Maw, he heals most of his health. But we also still have the Earth Resistance, which is very important. Here we are, we can't even see his health meter. We were just on the cusp, taking this guy out. Do a Whirlwind just for dramatic flair. I would have rather used Finishing Touch, because what's a better finishing move than something called Finishing Touch? We get about 30,000 damage here. I imagine with Arcane Awakenings around the corner, these kind of battles would be a lot easier, but why wait if you don't have to? Start beating this guy now, and there we go. We defeated the Midgardsormr. This is the first time. Felt good. Now we're gonna have to try to do the lightning guy. I have also beaten the Kraken, because my lightning team is pretty solid. My lightning team, rather than Cloud and Zack, I have Garnet, who has a lightning chain, and Ash, who just has great, like, wind empower or lightning empowerment. She has a dusk mote, plus just lightning attack that does massive damage. But also recently in that 40 draw, I also got another ability for her, which I'm hungry to try out. Here we go, this is what we got, and we got a Midgardsormr Magicite on top of the one you get for beating this the first time, which is great. So then we can get that up to level 65 already. So that was this battle. Thank you, folks, for checking out this walkthrough on Midgardsormr. If you have any questions, feel free to leave one in the comments. Or if you have any requests for other Magicite, if I'm able to do that, I would like to. I'd like to try to do all the level 4 Magikites and record it for you guys. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.